Social Security through the roof. In fact, I think even a majority of Republicans want to expand Social Security.
Popular is not a way to qualify something. If I
Well,
went
I
out
mean,
there and
it's
I
customer
gave,
satisfaction.
if I went to high school and I said, guys, I'm giving dime bags to everybody weed, I'd be a very popular kind of high school. So that is a wrong way to qualify.
You said efficiency.
Yeah.
Medicare, 3% administrative costs versus 15%.
That's like the kid that's running for class president who's like, every Friday we're throwing a pizza party.
Well,
he's going to get everybody's vote. But who's paying for the pizza party?
Well, workers, in fact.
In today's video, Sam Seder absolutely destroys Patrick Bet-David in a heated debate on taxing the rich and the importance of Social Security and Medicare. Sam Seder breaks down why Social Security is essential for keeping Americans out of poverty, while Patrick Bet-David isn't fully on board with the idea. So let's dive in and watch how Sam Seder shuts down PBD in this heated debate.
I would argue that we should be actually removing the cap on Social Security taxes, because right now, it goes only up to $160,000, right? There's a cap. Traditionally, Social Security has captured or touched 91% of the country's income. You follow me? And now it's somewhere down in like the mid 80s because of wealth inequality.
But your argument on the flip side of it, the argument can be as well to say, well, at the beginning when they came out with Social Security, there's only a few thousand people in America that was actually using it. It was not meant to be for as big of a behemoth of what it is today.
No, it kept 2/3 of our elderly out of poverty. It keeps 2/3 of our elderly.
Nobody's arguing the benefits of Social Security.
That's not the argument, though. That's not the argument. The argument is, originally when it came out, it wasn't for the bigger percentage.
You had to wait. You had to wait until you build up the funds.
You didn't have to. You had to have capitalist work and overtax them to be able to fund it. That's what you had to do. But let me go back to the question.
I think what you are saying, just to validate your point, I think at that point, this is FDR back in the day.
Yeah, we can pull up the data.
I think there was 40 workers for every retiree. I think now it's closer to like 3 workers.
Yeah, it's not sustainable.
So it's not even close.
No, it is sustainable.
You think it's sustainable.
No, I don't think it's sustainable. I'm looking at the Social Security Trust Fund actuarial
with
table.
the letter when they sent you this, in the Social Security letter, they're telling you if we go this way, this is going to go bankrupt.
No, you're misreading it. The trust fund is going to go bankrupt. In 1981, Greenspan and Reagan expanded the trust fund. We had a surge of baby boomers. There is a trust fund that exists that is essentially like a rainy day fund. That is going to be insolvent around 2033.
2033.
10
years. You are correct. I just had this conversation this past week.
However,
that's not a concern. That's not a concern.
It is a concern. It will cause 20% in cuts to our benefits.
Okay.
But that's it, period. Now, the way that we can get rid of that 20% in cuts in the Social Security Trust Fund is to do what I'm suggesting. Remove the cap so that every dollar you make, even above $160,000, is taxed by Social Security.
Sam,
and then your kids will be long dead before that trust fund is out.
Hopefully, if I raise my kids right, my kids won't need to be supported by the government.
If they don't need that social insurance, look, I mean, how can you, as an insurance guy, how can you not understand this?
No,
I don't sit around saying like, I hope that I don't need my fire insurance. I hope I don't. If your kids don't need Social Security, old age insurance, then you know what? We will tax the money back.
I am better for society. I am better for society if I find ways to get people off of needing any of this stuff than to rely on it more and more and more, because I'm truly hurting those who are creating commerce. That's who I'm hurting. But let me go back to my question.
Hold on for one second.
Wait a minute.
We had an experiment with this.
Wait a minute. Let me ask the question for you. Let me ask the question. You still haven't answered my question for me. No, wait.
401ks with a private solution.
Sam Seder is absolutely right on this one. And I feel like PBD is just twisting the argument here. Millions of Americans rely on Social Security, and without it, 22 million more people, adults and kids, would be in poverty. Maybe for someone like PBD who's got millions in the bank, it seems unnecessary, but for a lot of Americans, it's a lifeline. Now, PBD tries to argue that Social Security is unstable because it wasn't meant to be this big, which is partially true. Many articles suggest that Social Security faces serious financial shortfalls. But here's the thing, America has fixed it before and they can do it again. Like Sam said, removing the $160,000 cap would solve a huge part of this problem. We can't just ditch Social Security and expect millions of people to figure it out on their own.
I don't have an answer to my question. Let me go back to the question to you. So
Okay.
my question at the beginning, you have not yet answered, okay? When you said, I would go back to the old tax system and I would take it to the 50s and 60s where we had a 90%, okay. And I asked you a question. I said, who do you think produces more value? I gave the example of the Humvee, the pieces in the Army, how much we were paying, $600, but the piece was only $40. And the government tends to overspend because they're reckless spending. They're not really held accountable. Does money going in free market create more value, or money going to the government create more value for people?
Explain to me what you mean by value.
Okay, so value to me is, if I can give money to free market and lower taxes where they can go create more jobs, more opportunities, is that better for us long term, or is it better for us to raise taxes, to take away incentives and give that money, tax money, goes to politicians to make decisions what to do with the money? Are politicians better at making decisions on what to do with our money, or are we?
I mean, I guess in a broad way, I would say if we're going to look at the biggest chunk of money in the government to make this assessment, right? $1.7 trillion, Social Security. And we can compare it to the one sort of like comparable thing in the private sector, and that's a 401k. I would have to say, I mean, just based upon the way you've set up this question, that obviously the government, because Social Security has been the single most effective program that we have in this country. It has kept 2/3 of our senior citizens out of poverty as a social insurance program. 401ks have been a disaster. They've been a disaster. Just Google right there in front of you, the 401k experiment. People took the money out. I mean, and grant you, you can make an assessment that these individuals were stupid or immoral or whatever it is. I'm looking at the goal of keeping senior citizens out of poverty. The government has been able to do that far more effectively. 2/3 of our seniors are in nursing homes because the government is paying for it. You can look around at anything that doesn't involve a profit motive. Like, for instance, the post office. If we didn't have a government-run post office, do you think you could live in, the most rural parts of the country and get postal service for 42 cents or 48 cents? You can send a letter? No way. What person looking to make a profit would do that? In fact, I've got a great example. This is, I was doing radio during Katrina, and there was a story that haunted me for years and years. When Bill Clinton, I'm not a huge fan of Bill Clinton's administration, frankly, but one of the things he did do well was to build up FEMA. I guess having come from Arkansas, he had a pretty good sense of what was important there. And Bush, when he came in very early on, privatized a ton of it. There was a story, it was a very small story, in New Orleans. The buses that were supposed to come to New Orleans to evacuate people before Katrina hit, there was a whole ton of buses that went through 3 different contractors, right? There was like a general contractor and then a subcontractor, and then the subcontractor was going to bring the buses. They were from like 3 or 4 hours away. And maybe it was 6 hours. I can't remember the exact details. They were going to send the buses, but the guy whose job it was, who owns the bus company, and then the contractor above that, they waited longer, because if you send the buses and they're not used, they're going to eat that cost, right? It's going to cut into their profits. They didn't send the buses. They didn't get there in time. People couldn't get evacuated. Would it have changed the trajectory of the thing? I doubt it, but it would have saved some people. And the point is that there are some jobs that the government does better because the value there is not measured in terms of actual sheer dollars. It is measured in, essentially how much immiseration are you inhibiting people from suffering? And so yes, I agree that when it comes to auditing in the military, the worst government agency we have, because it's very easy, it's very hard to sort of like scrutinize the military. People don't like that. And it's also a huge power base of a lot of money. They make a ton of money out of this. I agree with that.
But same with
But
insurance.
if you look at Medicare,
Same with insurance.
Social Security, well, listen, The numbers don't lie. 3% administrative costs for Medicare.
Pause. If you're enjoying this video so far, please consider hitting that like button and subscribe. It helps out the channel a lot. But I'm starting to get tired of PBD pushing the same old government bad, free market good argument without actually looking at the facts. Social Security is hands down the most effective anti-poverty program in the US. I won't deny government waste is real, especially in military spending, but that doesn't mean all government programs are bad. Like Sam pointed out, Medicare runs way more efficiently than private insurance. Medicare has way lower administrative costs, while private companies spend a fortune on denying claims and executive bonuses. So yeah, sometimes the government actually does things better, and I guess PBD just doesn't want to admit it.
I appreciate some of the points you're making. I do think that you're kind of conflating a couple different things. I think to Pat's question, whether the government is better at spending your money or whether the private markets or private companies are better, it's not even close. If private companies
what do you mean by spending money, like to buy like soda, or to actually like just direct it in a way that keeps less people from suffering?
Okay, we have $31 trillion in debt right now. I think that's evidence enough, Sam, that we're not so good at spending money here in America.
It sounds like we're really good at spending money.
Well, we're not good at
managing. Is a better word, yeah.
Okay, there's a difference between being frugal and being smart with your money and just being wasteful. The government is clearly fucking wasteful. Where you are correct is that most retirees and most Americans do appreciate Social Security, do appreciate the entitlement programs that come with this country, whether it's Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, no doubt. But that doesn't mean the government is good at spending money. We're seeing that Social Security is about to go bankrupt.
The trust fund is going to be
the trust
insolvent
fund by 2023. And yes, I just had this conversation literally 2 days ago in DC where he kept using the word bankrupt. I said, what does that mean?
Who kept using that word?
This was
Which Republican used
it? It wasn't even a Republican. He was sort of a Social Security financial advisor, expertise type of guy. But I said, what do you keep saying bankrupt? Is that meaning that retirees will not be receiving benefits? He goes, no, they'll probably be slashed by 25%. You use 20, so we can, cut the baby in half here. But how familiar are you with the three-legged stool of retirement?
Of course, yes.
Okay, so it used to be you had three avenues to retire. You had pensions, which do they even exist anymore for 90% of people?
More as a defined contribution than defined.
They're not very popular these days. I don't know how many people here have pensions. You have Social Security, which was never meant to be a retirement program. It was an insurance policy if you live too long, which basically Americans are now. Or you have your personal savings, which is the 401k. We can argue the merits of 401ks and Roth IRAs, what have you. But Social Security should not be keeping Americans afloat for 30 years of their life.
Well, that's the failure of the private industry, isn't it?
Why is it a failure of the private industry?
Well, I mean, Social Security is maintained. The idea that we're leaning on the government stool because the other two have failed. That's a function of private industry.
Isn't that a function of just the average person understanding how money works and saving money, investing and doing it properly, versus the government or institution?
60% of the country lives paycheck to paycheck. How are they supposed to save this money?
Yes, in a perfect world, everyone would save and invest for retirement. But not everyone can do that. 60% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. Sure, some of that might be due to bad spending habits, but what about people working minimum wage who can barely afford rent and food? You really think they can just set aside $100 or $200 a month for savings or investments? That's just not realistic. This comment sums it up perfectly. Not everyone is rich like these guys, able to throw money into the stock market and saving every month. PBD and Adam are completely ignoring reality here. Social Security isn't perfect, but it's a lifeline for millions of Americans who simply don't have another option. But that's it for today's video. If you've enjoyed, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comment section down below.